All right, so up next, we have a special debate between regulation and anarchy. On one hand, we have Gidi Zakay, who's the CEO and founder of Bittax. He's a believer in Bitcoin adoption through regulation, as Bitcoin is much easier to track and follow than traditional fiat. On the other hand, we have Berwick, who's a freedom fighter against mankind's two biggest enemies, central banking. Why are so many people leaving? Against the state and central banks. Jeff has been calling the fall of the US dollar for a while and advocates the buying of gold and cryptocurrencies. Jeff also hosts Anarcho-Capitalist, which is the largest anarchy conference in the world that will take place in Mexico on the 14th of February. All right, welcome both of them. Ooh. All right,
You're so far away.
How are you guys doing? Jeff, are you okay?
I'm okay, thank you.
Gidi, are you okay?
I'm okay.
All right, so the way this is going to work, we're going to have 3 questions, 10 minutes for each question, 5 minutes for each one to answer. The topics are going to be the role of government in the modern economy, the privacy in the crypto era, and taxation of crypto coins. All right. So the first issue is the role of government in the modern economy. Since the dawn of history, rulers and states have been the authority that determines the rules of the game. However, new philosophies and technologies undermine the power of establishments and challenge regulators in the modern economy. What do you think should be the level of intervention needed to maintain a functioning society? How is this organization going to work? Would you like to start, Jeff?
Well, zero. You go ahead.
I would say zero knowledge proof, but wait a while.
This could be fast.
It is.
Yeah? All right, Jeff, how will a society like this function?
Well, how does it function right now? We're fine. People in general get along just fine. We actually live in a state of anarchy right now. At this moment, right now, this is a state of anarchy. There's no one here holding a gun to our heads. There's no one telling us exactly what to do right now. This belief that people have unfortunately been propagandized into, that they need someone who's their leader, it's actually a misleader. Someone who controls them, who owns them. How many people here, well, it's actually pretty bright up here, but who believes they own themselves? That's pretty good. Okay, this is a crypto conference. This is good. You know, there's a lot of places where not a lot of people put their hands up. There was even a YouTube video, I think Peter Schiff did it, and he went to, I think it was Occupy Wall Street, and he asked this young millennial person, he said, "Who owns you?" And the person took about a minute to think about it, and he eventually went, "I've got it." And he said, "Okay, so who owns you?" And he went, "My parents and the government." No, you own yourself. Government is just a belief. It actually doesn't even exist. The word government, govern, is gubernare, which is Latin, which means to control. Mente, mind control. It's a propaganda scheme to make people believe that they don't own themselves. And if people can ever fully understand that they own themselves, we will have a world of peace and prosperity like we've never known it. However, many people are propagandized. They go to 12 years of government indoctrination camps. They turn on the television programming, and it's called Programming for a Reason. And it tells them, you don't own yourself. We, Donald Trump, or what's the guy here, BB something? I don't care. But he's got a big announcement now. Who cares? It's true. It's a big show. And as soon as people realize that, we will have an amazing world. And actually, crypto is a big part of that, because the money system, currency, and it's called currency for a reason. Just like energy, electricity, that's why they call it currency. It actually transfers energy between people. And it's actually the most important energy that we have in day-to-day life. Every single transaction has a currency involved. If it's controlled by a central bank or a government, they are actually controlling what you do. And for the first time, other than gold and silver, we have an opportunity to actually control our own currency. Barack Drone Bomber said about 5 years ago, when he was asked about Bitcoin, he said, "It's like people have a Swiss bank account in their pocket." And then he went on to say, "How are we going to do simple things like tax enforcement?" The answer is, you can't, and we will stop this, and we will stop human slavery if people wake up.
Thank you very much, Jeff. Gidi, what do you think?
Well, it was a challenge for me to debate you, Jeff, to begin with, because I was under the impression that most of the stuff that's coming out of you, I will basically agree. But then we figured this out, and I do find a big gap. And this is not because I don't love your perspective. It's because I think we have a very, very, very serious thing to do, and there is a way to do this. And maybe, even if you're totally right, which I'm not sure about the necessity of any kind of government, maybe theoretically the perfect government that will support some things that we actually all agree we need. So maybe, I know actually that you have a different idea of how to perform these, let's say, public commodities or things that we need as a population, as a society, to make it privatized. But let's leave it aside, because I think that when we talk about basic things like to support the people that need the society support, maybe, and this is like a practical issue, I mean, to begin with, maybe if the world was one big community, we didn't have this kind of fraction, but for now, maybe you need a government even to support and protect against other governments. And also to protect people that play part in an economic regime, and maybe there is some kind of necessity, mathematically and economic, to support this. But I think the main thing is now that we're dealing, and I think this summit was opened by a senior regulator in Israel. I mean, we could definitely bring a lot of regulators here that would say they love Bitcoin, and actually some of them did. If you followed the newspapers a few days ago, you had the number 2 in the tax authority saying Bitcoin is a good thing, because anybody that would take the time and think about blockchain and Bitcoin will understand, even as a regulator, and I can speak as an ex-regulator, that the blockchain and Bitcoin are serving purposes of regulator, whether you agree the necessity of having these things, but also regulators can recognize this. My point is that once you take the time and you dive into the mathematics, the technologics, you understand something very strong about Bitcoin and blockchain. It's there to stay. So we got the opportunity to use this time to do what needs to be done, because for now, and I'm not talking about the quantum computer, David Chow will talk about this. For now, nobody can turn Bitcoin off. If they could turn it off, it was gone by now. So it is a very powerful notion that we can take the time to do the right thing. But let's do this. Let's take the time, let's use the time, because if regulators will fight this, or if we will take extreme measures against regulators, then the process will be longer. And I suspect if it will be too long, maybe we're missing a chance. What we need to do in order to make Bitcoin move to the next step, is to make it acceptable by regulators. And I know a lot of people that hears that, they have the stomach turn around. Because basically speaking, maybe this is not the best dream. But when we were kids and we wanted something, we wanted everything right now. We grow up, life hit us in the face, and we realize that what we need to do is to take it step by step. For now, next step is to work with the current system. to cooperate, to work under regular rules, and to have them coming away from the inside. It would be a romantic notion, but once you know what you're doing, once you deal with regulators, and I do believe that some of regulation is necessary. I think a good government can support. A good regulator that will look into the information will appreciate this. And this is not, it doesn't end there. We can protect privacy. We can use, we talked about zero knowledge proof. We can protect privacy. We can make it immutable. We can support this. We can make regulators work with us. We can go and admit ourselves into the system, introducing, we're not selling anything bad. This is great stuff. But we need the people to take time. I mean, we sit here and we listen to Nick Szabo, so deep, so profound, so strong. And if you'd like to compare to what we had to begin with, I mean, these are people that didn't take the time to dive in. But once you take the time, you dive in, you see how deep it is, how strong it is. We're not selling anything bad, but we need to know how to do that. We should take it step by step, and I think that would lead us perfect to the goal. If we don't use the time, I'm not sure what would be next. So next step is to make regulators work with Bitcoin. Then when you're stronger, you can do whatever you want. This is my plan. This is serious stuff.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Gidi. I think this is interesting because we might see, I don't know, in the near future what Gidi is describing and how, you know, Bitcoin might be, I mean, we're not going to get rid of regulation within the next, I don't know, year or so. And then later on, as we move and progress, we might be able to move into a more anarchist society. Maybe we'll have time to talk about this at the end. Okay, the second question is privacy. Technological developments in recent decades have brought new opportunities that are yet to be discovered. At the same time, however, there's been a trend of loss of privacy on the internet, spreading in all aspects of life. The various Facebook scandals and the Google is selling our information and that type of stuff. Bitcoin is considered anonymous among the general public, as even Aviv said here earlier this morning. He said Bitcoin is anonymous, which is, I guess most of the people in this room know that the anonymity is limited and monitored by countries and companies. How much user privacy should be protected from government, and how should it be done? Jeff?
0% should be protected by government.
Did I mention zero knowledge proof yet?
Privacy is a very interesting issue, and it's a very digital issue. And, you know, a lot of you, how many people are here on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter? Pretty much everyone, right? Most people. But you actually choose to do that, and that's fine. The biggest issue with privacy is if you have mafias, which are governments, which are extorting you for pretty much about half of what you make or more every year. If they know every single thing you're doing, that's incredibly bad. And it's going to get worse if we continue on. And once they go to digital currencies, and they will, and they are, it will get even worse than we have today. And I know a lot of people don't realize how bad it is. It's really bad. It's unbelievably bad. You don't really realize we're all slaves. We're all slaves. And there's a mafia, and they're extorting you, and they own you. And if everything's digital, they can track every single thing you're doing. If we have a completely private market, it's not a big deal. I actually don't mind. Me personally, if I know Facebook's listening, I know it's like on my phone right now listening to what I'm saying. If all it's doing is giving me advertisements that relate to what I'm talking about, that's not a big deal. And I choose that. I can turn off Facebook on my phone if I want to. It's all voluntary. But once governments get involved, this gets very tyrannical very quickly. And we can enter into a time, much like George Orwell wrote about in 1984, actually worse. I don't think he imagined how bad this can get. And it is, and it will, unless people wake up. However, if we can get rid of governments, which cryptocurrencies have the potential to do, it'll all be fine. It'll all be voluntary. just know that as long as we have the internet, we will never have full privacy. As long as you're on the internet, you won't have privacy. But as long as there isn't governments, it will just be giving you what you want. You'll get the ads you want. You'll be getting all the things you want given to you. That's what the market does. But when government gets involved, and they're tracking every single thing you're doing, and once they have control of a digital currency, and they know every single transaction you make, and they're extorting you, they call it taxes, on every single transaction you make, we'll have tyranny like we've never known it. So we actually will, in the next few years, have unbelievable tyranny like we've never known in humanity, or complete freedom. And this is what it's all about. And if the average person understood what cryptocurrencies were all about, and they started using them, and they stopped using the shekels or the dollars or whatever fiat garbage currency from a central bank, and they started using a private currency, we'll get rid of all these regulators, these oppressors, these people who control so much of most people's lives today. So it's really, in the next few years, going to be one or the other. And it's really, and you said, it's a very important time, and you're totally correct. And actually, I agree with you. It's not bad that the regulators get involved right now. It's not bad. They're going to do it anyway. We can't stop them. But if what they're doing by regulating it is making people realize and start using these non-governmental, non-central bank currencies, we'll actually get rid of them very quickly. And most people have no idea how beautiful this world can be without government.
Thank you, Jeff.
I'm really doing my best. I'm really doing my best to keep this as a debate, because some of the stuff I agree. But first, just to decide something more general, more maybe romantic, a lack of a plan. I mean, this is a nice thing to say we don't want governments, and even if mathematically I will agree with you that we don't need them, what would be next? How can we make this happen? And the whole strategic is missing. This part of the program is missing because we don't know what's going to happen. Maybe if it was the same way to begin with, it was making sense. For now, we're stuck. We have a situation in which we have different countries, different governments, and I do agree about some aspects of tyranny. I will be more polite than you. It doesn't mean I don't want to be like you. I just don't want to say this up loud. But I think the tyranny is not only from governments and also for big corporations, which are also a part of this plan to move forward and to make it better. And you just gave a very small example. If we look today at the Lightning Network, which is starting to accelerate, which is great, and we talk about Google, and we talk about Facebook that you love, and we keep getting these commercials, and they're getting paid. By virtue of introducing this system worldwide, we're going to get paid in a stream of income right to our phones when we get the commercials and stuff like this, which is very nice. But we need to understand that the way to go there is not by disregarding or whatever is right here, right now, in front of us. We need to take practical measures. We need to do stuff that will put us in the next step. And I believe that blockchain, in 2017, if I would say blockchain, it would be a buzzword. Now it would be buzz not to say blockchain. This is why I say blockchain. Because blockchain introduces to us, and for me, I'm unfortunately a very late adopter by late 2016. But once I dived into it, I saw that Bitcoin and blockchain have the cure for many diseases we have. And you know, each one of us takes whatever is important to him. From my experience, what I love with blockchain is that it is enable us to make sure that the databases of actual facts in life is not produced by regulators. It is produced by us, it is recorded by us, and nobody can change that. And I, as an ex-regulator, don't hate me that much, Jeff. I didn't know you at the time. But an ex-regulator that knows that when you go and deal with regulators, there is a big problem about the basis of evidence. you always get the feeling, especially in Israel, that maybe the basis of evidence, somebody has the opportunity to control it better than life. So this is one thing I find very important. Now, I think that internet introduced real democracy worldwide, and I think blockchain and the new technologies are enabling this dream to happen. And for me, after I was quite despaired by situation, also in Israel, worldwide, and the Comon and everything, the blockchain bears the possibilities for us to make it happen. Each individual can be a part of something. This is immutable. We can follow. We can understand. And the next challenge is to make this happen and still keep our privacy. So, not that we have that much to lose because we don't have privacy, I agree. But if we do this right, and if we go this way, and we find a way, a big question is how do you keep privacy? And Jonathan Klinger introduced to me the difference between privacy and security, which most of the people do not understand. I didn't understand until I dived into it too. So for us to be able to get this database, which is immutable and it's telling the truth, fact and things that everybody knows, but it's true. And then yet to keep it private, but the next step would be enabling us to perform vis-a-vis regulators that take only the fair share of what they need to do. Basically speaking, it's very simple. The government would not be responsible of producing the money, but we do want, and this is actually, even if you don't want this, this is something you need to understand, that it would not happen like this. But for now, they can monitor the system. Once they get this, unfortunately for some ideas in this room, I'm sure, they're going to love it. Blockchain is performing much better in anti-money laundering than any system existing now, including banks, including HSBC. Blockchain does this better. If we find a way to make it happen and keep privacy, I think this is a win.
Thank you. Thank you, Gidi. I personally think that one of the issues, when it comes to privacy, you have companies like Facebook, like Google. And today I ask almost anything from Google. I'm an expert Googler. That's what I think. And right now I ask it questions, but what's preventing Google in 5 years to know exactly what I want? So if I ask it, what car should I buy? And then it knows that I have problems. I think green, and I don't want a car that takes a lot of gas, maybe a hybrid or an electric car. And at some point, it will know me better than I do, because the algorithms are going to be so much better. Another example might be the Kindle. Right now, the Kindle, you read a book. What if it could record you, and it will see your face if you're sad and you're happy when you're reading something. And then later on, Amazon could recommend you something else because it knows this is how you react, this is what you feel when you read these type of literature. So yeah, privacy is a major issue. I hope that, after we take money from government, then we will be able to take our information from these companies. Otherwise, it's not going to be that free. All right, well, for the last question, we're going to talk about taxation.
The good stuff.
2018 was the year regulation woke up to cryptocurrencies, with varying capacities depending on the countries. Mainly tax authorities demand their share inside the cryptocurrency activity. Capital gains, taxes. So tax me if you can, or let's make some rules in this crypto jungle. I guess
the market can make all the rules it wants. The market is great. First of all, I want to just mention money laundering is a virtue, not a vice. Money laundering is beautiful. I wish everyone in the world would money launder, because that means you're keeping money away from those mafias that are what? What are they doing? They're stealing from you, they're extorting you, they're spying on you, they're blowing people up, which makes no sense. Does anyone want to blow anyone up? I don't. Who's doing all this? They are. They're stealing our money and blowing people up. Taxes is just a word for theft. or extortion. The fact that some people don't know this still is confusing to me, but they've actually brainwashed so many people. You don't owe anyone anything but what you want to give yourself to. You give your dollars or whatever you want to give, and that's actually true democracy. If you want to buy McDonald's, you go buy McDonald's, fine. But when someone is actually stealing your money and saying they're protecting you or regulating the market, it's all a scam. The beautiful thing about cryptocurrencies is, and this is one of the hilarious things to me personally, is when people say we need to regulate cryptocurrencies. That's why cryptocurrencies exist, because they regulate themselves. And you have the voluntary option to own those currencies if you want to. That's the beauty of the market. And they will try to regulate, and they are, but they can't. And that's the beauty of it. And if we can get far enough, and hopefully we will, possibly through regulation, which would be beautiful. It would be so beautiful if, because of governments and regulation, that cryptocurrencies become used by people across the world, and we get rid of governments and regulators. I can't imagine a more beautiful thing. That's so beautiful to me. But taxation is just extortion. How many people here get extorted every year? Every single person, right? And if you don't, then you're getting the proceeds of criminal transactions. If you're actually getting money from the government, you're actually getting money that's come through extortion. It's very evil. But thanks to cryptocurrencies, we do have the opportunity now. We didn't have this before. 10 or 20 years ago, I would have said there's no hope. But there's two things that have changed in the last 20 years. The internet, we now have the ability to have access to information that we didn't have before, and now we have access to private money. If we use that as humanity, all wars will stop. Poverty is almost over already. I don't know if anyone's noticed. There's a few places, and it's all caused by government. Yemen, for example. Poverty's almost stopped through capitalism, and most people don't know what that word means, but through markets. We've almost gotten rid of poverty already. And if we can just stop the extortion, plus the central banking and the inflation, which is incredibly nefarious, it actually destroys economies. And it's what keeps us working all the time and running and running. Got to pay our taxes. We can't keep up. The money keeps devaluing. Once we get rid of that, we will have an amazing world. And we'll see what happens. This is going to be the thing. And I'm not joking whatsoever. In the next few years, we'll decide the fate of humanity. It will be complete tyranny and slavery or complete freedom. And I know freedom scares a lot of people, but that's because you've been brainwashed. Freedom is beautiful. If every single human being doesn't get extorted, can decide what they want to do with their own proceeds of their own productivity, the world will be a beautiful place. And that's what it's going to be in the next couple of years. And it's very interesting, and it's actually going to be a bit of a battle. But the fact that you guys are here, and actually I'm very impressed with the audience here, the size of the audience, gives a lot of hope. And we'll see what happens. But it's not going to be easy. And most people don't realize it's coming all down to this. And only because of cryptocurrencies and the internet do we have, finally, the chance to free humanity.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Jeff. Gidi?
Let's use this chance, Jeff. So we can describe this as a scam that Jeff and I just plotted. So we're going to go in there, we have the plan, we're going to play as if we play by the rules, and then from the inside, we're going to conquer the world and release the governments. I'm more gentle than you. I'm not going to kick them out. I'm going to release them. Yep. But basically, when we think about this, it's not a question of, am I fooling Jeff or am I fooling the regulators? Because this is not the case. Because if we go this way, and I'm so happy you agree, because the role of people that have your mind is the thing that got us today. It wouldn't happen without you, that's for sure. This is the role in history that brought us to this point. Cryptocurrency, Mr. Sabo, Mr. David Chaum, and yourself. This is it. Now let's use this. And this is not only theoretical. I'm going to mention how we're going to do this text-wise. Right now, and this is difficult because I know that a lot of people that are sitting here, when they hear this about taxation in Israel right now today, they're not going to be happy about this because this is taxation and this is blockchain and Bitcoin. And for a lot of people to get to have Bitcoin and tax in the same sentence, it's painful. But, excuse me, I think this is what needs to be done. And for me, it's not as painful because I haven't been there for so long. And actually, I know the other side. And if we speak about the Israeli Tax Authority, this is not our problem, especially not for now. But let's talk about practical aspects. So I will show you a demonstration of how we can use regular rules and bureaucracy in a manner that will support what we do on a day-to-day basis, and also to enable the regulators to feel comfortable with us. So tax authorities worldwide and also in Israel decided that Bitcoin is not a currency, it is an asset. For now, my first mission was to figure out how can it be an asset under our perspective as well, without agreeing that this is not currency, payment methods, because it is, basically. So this is an ecosystem that is opening up, developing, growing up. So once we buy Bitcoin today, it's like an investment. I'm not talking about ICOs, I'm talking about Bitcoin. I'm talking about currency. We buy Bitcoin, this is for the future. This is an investment in an ecosystem that will be evolving. And we believe this is stock of value that will grow up. We can also use this for now as coins, currency, payment methods. We can also use the Lightning to make small payments. The tax authority should be extremely happy if it will be taxless, because otherwise they will be facing DDoS for every time we buy pizza or chewing gum. But there is a solution. Now, there comes the painful part, but it is working and it is good. You just need to choose. So if you go into the blockchain, which is not fungible for now, and you recognize the UTXO, of which you sold and buy and sold and buy and got the change, and if you follow this right, and if you put this in a manner that you write the code to make it work, we know exactly what kind of Bitcoin, which Bitcoin you can sell today without a tax event. So you can have your wallet, and you can have a Lightning channels opened up with UTXO that you know that are facing higher tax cost than the actual price of this coin in the markets. Once you know this and you transfer and you make a transaction, this is the first time you use the regular rules and the regular law to play the game of having a coin. This is it. I mean, we don't like it. It comes with a lot of burden. But if you lose a Lightning channel that is under the cost basis of it is higher than whatever the price, the quote price is today, you actually have a wallet in your pocket, and it's not a Swiss bank, it's a commercial bank in your pocket. You do whatever you want because this is your money, you keep it in your pocket, and you use it as money today under regulation. So we have a huge cost basis from the end of 2017. We can use this in order to perform, to buy stuff, and to get huge amounts of deductions, more than Macy's. 70%, 80%, depends how much you spend when you buy the coin. So this is first step. Second step, and I think if we can make it right, it will work, that regulators, tax authorities, they do not need to get all the information, and you're going to hear about this later today, if we work with zero-knowledge proof protocols and other similar protocols, to make sure that they understand they're getting what they consider to be the fair share under these protocols without getting the information we don't want to surrender. This is a way to use the system to go in, and then let democracy decide what's in there. It's not a bad plan. Let's do that.
Thank you. Thank you, Gidi. So yeah, I think there's no way to, let's say, evade tax these days. I mean, you guys are in Israel. Some people here got letters from the Israeli tax authorities to declare whatever Bitcoin they have and, you know, these type of things. There's no way around that. We don't want anyone to be a criminal right now. But cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin and this entire thing kind of sends us in a way for personal economic freedom. And, you know, some of you might say, Jeff is saying, you know, it doesn't make sense. How can you have a society without government, without people functioning in a society? So what if we take the 1,000 people that we have here and we decide that we live in a town and, you know, someone needs to take out the garbage. So who's going to do that? You know, that guy over there is going to do that. And, you know, suddenly he starts charging too much. So, you know, another guy says, okay, I will take out the garbage for less. And everything can work in a truly free economy. And even, you know, taking care of the less fortunate. This can all be done in these type of societies. So, yeah, any last things you guys want to add? Jeff, Gidi?
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Jeff, for coming over. We appreciate this. Thank you.
Thank you both.